Understanding social behavior, chapter 14. Social perception is the way we seek to know and understand others, people, and events, also known as social cognition. The first step in impression formation is categorizing people into groups. Your impression formation, the process of integrating various sources of information about a person into the overall judgment. Okay. We all profile, guys. Just want you to know, profiling happens. Categorizing people into groups can lead to stereotyping. Stereotypes fix set of beliefs about people that put them into categories and does not allow for individual variations. In groups, a group which belongs and that forms as part of our social identity. Out groups, any group which do not share the membership. Is there a physical attractiveness stereotype? The belief that any physically attractive individual poses social desirable personality traits and leads happier, more fulfilling lives than less attractive persons. You know, they've done research to show that people that are symmetrical, if they're standing with their legs apart, with their arms out to their sides, and they would draw a line, are they symmetrical? Those people tend to get jobs faster than people that are not symmetrical. People that are dressed up more and their hair's done tend to get better jobs than the people that are less put together. Prejudice is an attitude and discrimination is an action. Prejudice, attitude towards a member of a specific group that directly or indirectly suggests that they may deserve an inferior social status. Discrimination, a negative or patronizing action towards a member of a specific social group. There's the difference. You can be prejudiced but not discriminating. You can be discriminating but not prejudiced. How does intergroups competition cause prejudice? Realistic group conflict theory. A theory of prejudice contending that when two groups compete for sacred resources, this competition creates a breeding ground for prejudice. Who's going to be on top? If we lived in a society where everybody was equal, you will see people move to the top so that they can be number one. They're going to compete. No matter how kind of equal they want us to be, you always see people trying to move to that next level. Ethnocentrism, a pattern of increasing hostility towards out-groups, accompanied by an increased loyalty to one's in-group. That's why gangs are so hard to break. Explaining people's behavior hinges on either internal or external attributions. Attributions, the process by which people use information to make inferences about cause of behavior or events. Internal attribution locates the cause of an event as a factor internally to the person, such as personality trait, mood, attitude, ability, or effort. External attribution locates the cause of an event as a factor external to the person, such as luck, other people, or situation. Some people will say, yes, I won the lottery because I'm a lucky person. It's me. Other people will go, no, they just were lucky on those numbers. Okay, it has nothing to do with what they can do. They don't create their own reality, none of that. So, winners usually say, I did that on my own, I picked the numbers, or I was smart enough to buy a lottery ticket. External factors, people were lucky for that situation. Why did my parents reject negative to my spending time with Bart Simpson? And here's a whole, is it an internal, is it an external attribution? And it comes down to why parents seen this attitudes. Positive or negative, evaluation of an object. Two common attitudes shape our repeated exposure and condition. More exposure effect, the tendency to develop a more positive feeling towards an object and individual that are more frequently we are exposed to them. If you have something you don't like, the more you're around it, you tend to start disassociating the negatives and start finding the positive or common ground that you have with them. It's very hard to do. People take one of two cognitive routes in processing persuasive messages. Persuasion, the process of conscientiously attempting to change attitudes through transmission of some message. When I want people to like something, I might post something online that has a positive remark to it. Sometimes there's people that try to get you to be more positive, and they tell you, if you're more positive, you'll feel better. If you're more positive, your life will change. And that's true, it will. When your thinking changes, then your attitudes change. Elaboration likelihood model, the theory that there are two ways in which persuasive messages can cause attitude change, each differing in the amount of cognitive effort or elaboration they require. Sometimes people do this on elections. How are we swaying? Are we swaying for the Democrats? Are we swaying for the Republicans? What is it going to come down to? Whether or not you like going to church? Those kind of attitudes also come in. So, persuasive message. Are you a no? Are you a yes? And how it's going to go down to no, no change, attitude change, no change. Here it comes in on what the message is and the route it's going to go through. A need for cognitive conscientious can lead to attitude change. Cognitive dissonance, a feeling of discomfort caused by performing an action inconsistent with one's attitude. If I do something out of my comfort zone, it's going to cause me some discomfort. And it's going to cause me to really look at what I'm doing, If I would go up and hit somebody, that's out of my comfort zone. Now, if I would go up and tap somebody on the shoulder or squeeze their arm and say, hey, how are you today? Squeeze their arm gently. How are you today? If I hurt them, I would feel bad about that. But I'm not just going to go up and hit somebody. That does not solve any issue for me. Other people, so I would have discomfort if I thought I hurt somebody. Social influences, the exercise of social power by a person or group to change the attitude or behavior of others in a certain direction. We all want to influence people, whether we like it or not. Some of us influence people by being quiet. Some of us influence people by being very vocal. Ash research demonstrates the power of conformity pressure, a yielding to perceive a group pressure. What is the group doing? I had a guy in class, and I was lecturing, and I still had 2 chapters to go. And this is when I taught, and from 5 to 10:45 at night. It was so late. And we got done with our test, and I lectured a chapter, and the weather was bad outside, and people started getting up. And I said, okay, anybody that wants to leave can. Anybody that doesn't want to leave, I'll continue to lecture. So people got up. And then this one guy said, Miss Perdue, can I ask you a couple questions? I said, sure. I stayed there for another hour and a half, and I lectured the last 2 chapters for him. And we talked, it was more of a conversation because it was just me and him. We sat down and had a discussion over every slide and get that. He made a 100 on the test. Everybody else made a 60. Guess they should have listened to those last 2 chapters and stayed. But they wanted to get home. The weather was bad. They were worried about stuff. And so there's the group pressure. He did not conform to that group pressure. And the next week when he made a 100, they're like, did you see the test? And he's like, no, we went through them and we talked step by step by step by step by step. And he actually goes, Miss Perdue, pull up the notes. And she talked about this and said this, and she talked about that and said that. And it was really good for people to see in that class how important the lecture was. Factors that influence conformity are the following: group size, group cohesiveness, social support, desire for personal control, and culture. Smaller groups are usually more cohesive, and they usually have more social support with one another. And it will depend on what you can control in that group and what the culture is. Is it a hierarchy? Is there family relations? Compliance of influence by mood, reciprocity, and reason giving. Compliance, publicly acting in accord with a directed request. Do you stop at a stop sign? Do you hold the door out for somebody? Do you yield to your right? Reciprocity norm, the expectation that one should return a favor or do a good deed. If somebody does something nice for you, you expect them to do something nice in return. You are expected, or a thank you note. And I'll tell you, we've really went away from thank you notes. Thank you notes are vitally important. Milgram's research demonstrates that people often obey destructive orders. Obedience, the performance of an action in response to a direct order. Look at Nazi Germany. They listened to direct orders. But you can see it in many other things, that direct orders people go ahead and do, even though it doesn't always benefit them. Charles Manson's group. Aggression, any form of behavior that is intended to harm a person, oneself, or an object. Aggressive involves intention to do harm. It is your counselors, your teachers, any member of the community. If you know somebody is doing something to be aggressive, it is your job to report it. Instrumental aggression, intention of use of harmful behavior in order to achieve some other goal. Hostile aggression, intention to use harmful behavior with a goal of causing injury or death to a victim. And you should report that. Sometimes people don't want to report it, but they do. Indirect, physical, verbal. Females are much more likely to do verbal, less likely to do physical. Okay? Aggression impulses can be modified by higher order thinking. Cognitive neo-associationist model, a therapy of aggression stating that adverse events produce negative effect, which stimulates the inclination to aggress. Helping others is a largely learned response. Deciding to help often involves a series of decisions. Audience inhibit effect, a situation in which people are inhibited from helping due to fear of being negatively evaluated by others, bystanders, if they do intervene or it turns out not to be an emergency. Diffusion of responsibility, to belief that the presence of others in a situation makes them less personally responsible for an event that occurs in that situation. Those are both very, very hard. Are you going to help or aren't you going to help? Model of bystander intervention, what happens? There's been lots of things on where there's tons of people around, but nobody's called for help and somebody's died. Proximity and similarity often lead to attraction. Matching hypothesis, the proposition that people are attracted to others who are similar to them in certain characteristics such as attitudes, physical attractiveness. The balance theory, that people are desired cognitive consistency or balance in their thoughts, feelings, and social relationships. So sometimes if you're non-aggressive, you'll meet somebody that's aggressive and it's a match because you balance each other out. Romantic love, passionate love, a state of intense longing for a union with another that we typically experience most intensely during the early stages of a romantic relationship. Compassionate love, the effect that we feel for those whom our lives are deeply entwined. I have compassion for my mother. I have compassion for my children. The relationship between love and marriage is differed across cultures. Some marriages, it is a form of respect and a form of one person is in charge and others are not, and that's the ruling relationship. Others are more equal, and it depends on the day on how equal you are in any marriage. Positive illusion and mind reading increase romantic satisfaction. Here's the deal. If you paraphrase back to somebody, they might think you're really listening to them. If you pay attention to what they asked for over the period of a couple months and write down things that they'd like and then get them that as a gift, they're going to think you're a mind reader. And it's much more attractive when people think you're listening to them. People use 4 strategies to handle a relationship conflict. They're going to exit. They're no longer going to be a friend. They're going to have a voice in the relationship and want to have their voice heard. They're going to neglect that relationship and not nurture it the way it needs to be. Or they're going to be loyal. And they're going to have loyalty to that relationship even if it hurts them. that's the end of chapter 14. Make sure you do your study guide and be ready for the final test, which is 150 points. And we'll take it during finals week. That'll be posted on the thing. If you have any questions for me, please make sure to email me and through course email, and I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Have a great day.